Good. Good morning. My name is Phil Brennan. I'm the chair of the Corporate Services Committee meeting today. And I'm calling this meeting to order. As a first step then, any member of this committee have to disclose a pecuniary interest. That being done, we're going to move to delegations. Please be advised that in accordance with the council's procedural bylaw, that no decision will be made on the delegations. The committee will do one of the following: refer the matter to staff for a report, refer the matter to future budget deliberations, or take no action. So for our first delegation, we have Kelly Erickman and Rick Robinson of 3193 Shoreview Drive. And they are going to talk to us about their request for an exemption to the fence bylaw. By all means, proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. And as stated, I am here to discuss the bylaw regarding our privacy fence sections we have down the side of our home. We did receive an enforcement on it, and I just want to give some background as to what we have dealt with over the years and the fence, etc. So first of all, they have been up for 8 years, these fence sections. And in between, we planted shrubs. Obviously, when we first planted, they were little. It's been 8 years. It was $6,000 to construct these sections with the shrubbery. And we paid for all of it. Our neighbors did not contribute a dime for this. When we first bought this land, obviously it was vacant. Well, not obviously, but it was a vacant piece of land. And we were very excited. It's like, hey, we get to build our dream home. We're going to be on the lake. And unfortunately, there have been issues from the day that we purchased this property. During our build, which was probably lasted 5 months, they called their builder almost daily complaining about one thing or the other. I even reached out to our builder a couple of weeks ago and asked him if he had anything in emails, and he said no, but I do recall these people. He said, we've never dealt with anything like that. It was a consistent call. The issue was the neighbors used the land as their own. So they had a fire pit on it, they parked their boat trailer, and they parked their truck on the vacant land. So when we purchased, needless to say, they were not very happy about it because they wanted it. Apparently, they had asked a neighbor on the other side to go in with them to purchase it so they can continue to use it. Again, not happy with this. So when we were building, we had our docks into the lake. One of our little dogs ran out, and Shih Tzu, she was 3 months old, 10 pounds, tiny little thing. Their dog ran over and grabbed her and shook her violently. And I mean, of course, I was having an absolute fit. And then she took off across the street. Like, we were so nervous. I don't know how she didn't get hit by a car. I did speak to the neighbor about it, and she said, my dog was kissing your dog, and dismissed it. When the eaves troughs were being installed, some of the material fell onto the neighbor's yard. So they came walking out, and they said to the guy doing the eaves troughs, you need to get this off our property. He said, well, I will. I'm just finishing this. And anyway, apparently our neighbor said to him, I'm a professional boxer. I'm not afraid to fight. So he wanted to fight with him. Another time they had company over, and their friend's dog came into our yard once again and grabbed we have 2 Shih Tzus. So they grabbed the other little one, and they shook her violently. There was blood, there was pus. Like, my husband actually had to put his foot on the dog to let our dog go. And, I just said to them, we are sick and tired of this. There's been issues. Stop it. The wife started jumping up and down, doing jumping jacks, calling me names. And the husband, once again, he wanted to fight my husband. So at this time we called the police because we just thought enough is enough. We are having quotes done for walkways, and one of the contractors parked in front of their house. The passenger got out of their truck and stepped onto the grass, which is really the ditch. And they came running out, yelling and screaming that it was their property, get off the property, like they would not be disrespected, how rude. It's been an ongoing battle. We are having our house painted. I delayed the painting on our home because they were having a patio inserted. And so I asked the guy doing the patio, I said, how long is it going to be? And he said, I'm only going to be a few more cuts. Don't worry. It's no problem. I'll go to the side and I'll do it there. So I said to him, thank you so much. Once again, they came into our yard yelling and screaming at us. It was literally a 3-minute conversation. We've had friends over numerous times. They're yelling at us to be quiet. It's just, it has not been a good situation. With the shrubs between the fence sections, like the fence section is at their side of the house. So that's where they store all their junk. All their junk is stored there where we have the trees and the fence sections. Anyway, they went, I think it was 2 years ago, just because of spite, absolutely no other reason. They cut all the shrubs down on their side to 2 inches, smaller than when we bought them. So they go up 2 inches, and then all of a sudden they go out and they're nice and full. So it ruined the look of it. They're very loud. Like we can't even sit on our deck without having a radio in the corner of our deck. They have really taken away the right of peaceful enjoyment of our property. For the past 2 summers, they've had contractors working on addition to their home every Saturday and Sunday for 2 solid summers. We did not complain at all. Once they had finished building this pergola, that's when they put in the complaint about our fence. So after 8 years of looking at the fence, they decided to complain about it. As far as I'm concerned, this is a vexatious claim. The dictionary definition is denoting an action or bringing of an action that is brought without sufficient grounds for winning, purely to cause an annoyance to the defendant. This is their sole purpose of these people, just to make our lives difficult. It has been for the past 8 years. Even the bylaw 3.7 speaks to this. The bylaw complaints deemed to be frivolous and vexatious should not be investigated. That a complaint may be deemed to be frivolous and or vexatious by the municipal law enforcement officer only after consultation with the department head. I believe this enforcement should be dismissed. They have not complained for 8 years, and the sole purpose of this complaint is to cause annoyance force. Part of the enforcement is that we have to reduce one fence panel to 4 feet as per yard SR2 restrictions. This is because we are on the lake. If we were not on the lake, we would not have an issue. We put up a 6-foot fence in 2 sections that's kind of near the lake, well, the edge of our property, because they have an old dilapidated shed that is directly adjacent to a panel that we have. It is that from where our fence section is, that's 6 feet. So our fence section that is 6 feet is against a bylaw. This 10-foot shed that's in the exact same place is not against a bylaw. Like, I don't understand how that shed, which is in the same place as our fence, is acceptable and our fence is not. So to me, I think that bylaw has to be reviewed. I just do not feel that that is equitable. According to the bylaw, Also, the finished side of the fence should be facing outward from the property. The neighbors did not contribute a dime. And now we have to incur additional costs so both sides of the fence are finished. Honestly, this is just where they store all of their junk. In commercial and industrial zones, council has to approve an alternative form or height of fencing. I request that council approve an alternate form for us with regards to this fence. To reiterate, after 8 years, they are complaining. I cannot stress enough, knowing the type of people that they are, that this is strictly a vexatious claim with the sole purpose of causing annoyance. Based upon these reasons, we request that this order be dismissed. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And, well, sorry to hear of those troubles. Does any member of this committee have questions for clarification? Member Taylor?
Hey, Mike, I think we're having some difficulties on our end here for a minute.
I didn't hear anything, Michelle, and now I just see myself on the screen.
Yeah, that's okay. David's aware, and I think they're just working on it, so hang
All right.
tight.
All right, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
That would be the one.
Member Kett, can you hear us?
Ken, thank you. But I didn't hear what Member Taylor said. It froze right after he started to speak.
A rerun. Yeah, so sorry for anyone who might have been affected by this breakdown in communications, but we're back on. And just for continuity, we're going to ask Mark to repeat his comments.
Yeah, through the chair, thanks for your presentation. It's unfortunate to see what you're going through. And in summary, I'd like to see staff come back with a report as to what we can and cannot do to help alleviate this issue. And the pictures show 1,000 words. And as per member meetings, I think we want to look at the pictures and maybe have some more dialogue there. But at least we come out of this with a report from staff, and any future altercations, don't do it amongst yourselves. Call the OPP.
100%.
Thank you. Member Minnings.
Thank you through the chair. So I'm wondering if I could ask the clerk to put up I think there are 4 pictures that were submitted with the agenda package from the homeowners. And if I could ask the homeowners to go through each one of the pictures so it's crystal clear what we're
Sure.
looking at. So we'll wait for those to go up. Thank you.
Okay, this picture here, this is when we initially had put the fence sections in. And as you can see, like, I believe this is aesthetically pleasing. We did not do a solid fence because we didn't want it to look like, this big barrier. We did it this way. And honestly, we called bylaw when we put this up to find out what we could and we could not do. And they said, your front yard, you can't have more than 4 feet, but the side and the back, you can be 6 feet. We did not understand when we did this, that living on the lake, that the lakefront was considered the front. So those panels were 6 feet. I mean, honestly, some of them were a little more because of the way that the land went. Yeah. But as you can see, the trees have grown immensely from the first picture that you saw. Like, some of them are probably 15 feet high now. So this is how it would look today. And it's those back panels there that they are complaining about. So there, if you can see that shed, I can go over more. I thought it was a better picture there.
Is this your neighbor's property we're looking at, or is this
That's-
your property?
That's my neighbor's property that I'm looking at, and this is the shed that we have to stare at. So that is legal, but our fence being at that height is not. And this is where I really do not understand how that is fine for us to stare at that. And they're complaining because they have to stare at a 6-foot fence. To me, this just does not seem equitable. There has to be rulings with that, I would think.
Can you just clarify, the fence is on your property?
It's on our property.
And what's the height up to the lattice? Yeah.
Probably 5 feet.
5, 6.
Says over 5 foot board. And then the lattice is 12 inches. But they're very new. If we cut the tops of the posts down.
Oh, sorry. Forgot about that. Apparently, if we cut the tops of those posts down to almost flush with the lattice, we're okay there, except for this one section, they want us to take it down to 4 feet, which kind of stupid, really.
Yeah, we take great pride in our house, and we have built a beautiful house on the lake. And I mean, as I said, we did the fence and the shrubs, which I think look fantastic. And we want us to lower our fence so we can stare at that further, which I just think it's just not right.
Thank you. So I have a subsequent question. And I just learned this too, as this matter was being brought forward today, is I did read the whole fence bylaw. I read it end to end. I know we just talked about it a year or so ago here and amended it, but nowhere in the bylaw, and again, looking to the clerk to correct me if I'm wrong, does it say anything about rear yard for people living on the waterfront becomes their front yard, which is the area where your driveway is and connects you to the road. That becomes your rear yard or your backyard only if you live on the lake. And then your front yard becomes what I know is your backyard. So I've lived on the lake here for 9 years and I just learned this. I read the bylaw and I don't see where that is stipulated. And I just need some help from the township to understand how anyone, because there are, I would argue, maybe 1,000 people, maybe waterfront owners across this entire township, that may not be crystal clear from. And I really don't want to open up a can of worms about people who've had fences for, I forget what you said, 8 years. And I know in my neighborhood, some of those fences are older than 8 years. And now I'm going, they should all be 4 feet because it's a waterfront, but yet you can allow a 30-foot cedar and build it actually as tight as a fence. And that's not illegal. So just help with the bylaw, please, from that.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to leave most of this for the report that comes back because this is a closed session bylaw enforcement matter in general terms. But with respect to the general clarification on front yard and such, I'm actually going to defer to the Director of Planning and Development who's on the screen because I believe that that is defined under our zoning bylaw.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Chair, just further to Ms. Gray's point, I would like to confirm that is in the township zoning bylaw. The various yards are described by definition, and the front yard on a shoreline residential property such as this is the yard between the high water mark and the closest wall of the building. So that is where the interpretation comes from.
Thank you very much. And so subsequent question then to the director. Should there not be a cross-reference or a mention somewhere in this bylaw that as a homeowner who goes online and looks at the bylaw, because I just ordered a 5-foot fence, by the way, from my property to the lake. And now when that installer shows up in the spring, I'm in contravention of a bylaw that I read very carefully. I sat here for hours as we brought the fence bylaw back several times to be discussed. So it's either an oversight on our bylaw that there isn't a cross-reference. And so I would like us to know that because I don't think the average homeowner is, I'm just questioning being in contravention of a bylaw when it's not explicitly stated or even somewhat mentioned. So thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, would you, I could provide a cross-reference for councillor meetings just for reference. In the township zoning bylaw, we do have an accessory structure section that is 3.2.9, just for reference, and it does reference fences with a maximum height of 1.2 meters on shoreline properties. And that would be the cross-reference. So fences are regulated both in the zoning bylaw and then further regulated under the fence bylaw as well. So you have to read the two documents together.
So thank you. And subsequent question, as I said, it's not explicitly stated. So as a resident and also as a council member, there was no way for me to know where else and which other bylaw, and we have a lot of them, where it's explicitly stated, and I think that's an oversight.
Thank you. Yes, to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to cautiously suggest that unless there are questions to the delegates, that further questions on the merits of the requests be held until we can bring a report forward in closed session, as this is an open bylaw enforcement matter.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so then I just have one final question for the residents. Thank you. Is it only the section of fence that you showed in the photo that needs to be lowered as far as whatever bylaw
The
enforcement?
one
we
that's
receive?
across from the shed, that has
That's
to be
that's
lowered
the one section.
to 4 feet.
Thank you. And when does that have to be reduced by, or is there a fine
Well,
attached?
initially we were given December 14th, but that was when the huge snowfall came. And then it was extended to March 31st. But as we explained, we could still have, as we do now, we have 10 feet of snow. So it's been extended again till, I believe Allison extended it till after Easter. So hoping that, you know, it has been extended out to then. But like I said, right now our fences are buried. You can't even see them.
Okay, thank you.
I have a
Thank-
question too. So the one section, the fence that faces their property, it has the top and the bottom rails, right? And now they want us to put vertical boards on the other side. So to apparently make it look better.
Yeah, I don't.
Why should
We're
they-
not in a position to comment on that. I think this has to be left to the bylaw. We
Oh.
can't comment on
Oh,
those things.
okay.
Not until we get a report back. So
Okay.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't want you to waste your time and get frustrated over this. These matters will be dealt with in the report back, and you'll be privy,
Oh,
to
okay.
the outcome of that at the end of the day.
All right.
I think there was another question though from Member McIntyre.
Thank you, Chair. It'd be difficult to get on their side of the wall to put the fence, and make it pretty on that side, I'm sure. Through the chair, the question is, what was the results of the OPP attending the time when you had them, when you called them in? What did they have to say? And is there,
The OPP went to the house. Well, because it was 2 neighbors that were involved, and they went and they spoke to them. And actually I called the OPP before I came here, and he suggested again, he said, we already have one on file. And he says, if you have further instances, call us.
Mhm.
But I mean, we didn't charge or anything. I just wanted them to know this has to stop.
Mm.
We are not putting up with this. So that's why we contacted the OPP, because it's the second time that they have threatened to fight.
okay, and second question was, who paid the bill for the dog when it was injured and you had to take to the vet? Did they contribute anything to that?
After 3 days, saying you're going to pay for this, they said, no, we're not. And I said, either you pay for it, I'm going to take you to court. And I mean, yeah, it
Well,
was,
that wasn't that's not the neighbors besides. It
it
was
was the other people.
their friends that live across the road. They had their dog over.
It's their dog.
In
Yeah.
their property. And so the dog had to go to the vet. And it was a holiday, so we would have had to take him to the, like the.
Yep.
Emerge.
Emerge, whatever, right, which would have cost triple amount of what, normal would cost, so. We did wait the extra day, we took her to the vet, and they ended up paying for the bill, which wasn't a lot, but it was just the principle of it. It's like, hey,
Thank you. I
150
think the
bucks.
CAO is a question.
Yes.
Through the chair, not a question, but I think we need to move this matter to a close. Fences are in our jurisdiction.
We have that under control. Yeah. So unless there is some clarification from the clerk, then we will move this to the report stage, and thank you. So we'll need a motion.
Thank you.
right, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
So the motion reads that the delegation by 3193 Shoreview Drive regarding a request for exemption to the fence bylaw be received and referred for staff report.
Mover. Member McIntyre. Seconded by Member Minnings. All in favor?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right, our second delegation. We have the OPP Municipal Policing Bureau, OPP Integrated Service Delivery, Annual Expenditures, the billing model, and municipal policing cost breakdown. Our speakers today are Lisa Rotar, Rob Griffin, and I think you're our new inspector, are you not?
Yes.
Yeah, Jeff Dixon. So welcome and take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Sergeant Lisa Rotar, and I'm with the Municipal Policing Bureau of the OPP. And I'm here today with my colleague also from the Municipal Policing Bureau, our case manager, Staff Sergeant Rob Griffin, and your detachment commander, Inspector Jeff Dixon. And I believe, Inspector, did you want to just open with a few words of welcome?
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. I am the interim detachment commander, so I just want to say a quick hello to council. And the mayor, I guess, is virtual. So I'm here learning as well about the policing billing model, and certainly obviously sit on the detachment board as well, which represents Severance. Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here as well with us. So just a little bit about myself. I've been with the OPP for 20 years now. And as you know, we work across the whole province. And I started my career down in Aurora, and I worked my way over to dignitary protection, missing person, unidentified bodies unit or investigations. And recently, 3 years ago, I came to Municipal Policing Bureau. And I'm going to let my colleague introduce himself as well.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, thanks for having us, everyone. We're happy to be here. Lisa was kind enough to invite me along to say a few words as well. And thanks to the inspector as well for having us. I know he's new in the room, but my name's Rob Griffin. I've been a police officer for about 17 years. Worked across the province. It's actually my third police service I've worked for. I had a chance to work for 2 municipal police services as well as the OPP. And it's been a great experience. So my background as well is investigative. I've worked in a lot of major crime units across the province and done major investigations. Also, I worked in the traffic and marine unit. So bit of a broad spectrum of skills here, but we're going to talk today about billing, which is a whole new experience for me as well. So the having the billing conversation is very interesting because there's a lot of things we're going to talk about that you wouldn't think are involved in billing, but they actually are. So I'll turn it back over to Lisa to go over what we're going to talk about, and then we'll get going.
And yeah, so for today, again, we are going to talk about our integrated service delivery and how we deliver policing. And by having that base understanding, that's going to break down our billing costs and how you are billed as well for recoveries, as well as provincial responsibilities. So again, high level, we're going to go over our integrated service delivery, detachment boards versus your police service boards, financial recoveries and responsibilities. And again, we're going to specifically digest your bill for Severed for 2025 annual billing statement and any questions that you may have. So from that, here we go.
Thank you, Lisa. So I would on this slide here, you see our vision. Again, I mentioned we're going to talk a few things, but before we get into the bill, and the one thing that really stood out to me when I joined the OPP and I started to learn about how billing worked with municipalities was the vision that OPP has, and that's how we get to where we're going in our organization, much like your organization has your vision statement, but ours is a safe community, safe communities, a secure Ontario. And there's deep meaning in that because the safe communities and secure Ontario basically means that we have 2 mandates as OPP. One is policing municipalities, and the second is policing the province. So we try to do 2 things at once, so to speak. So safe communities, secure Ontario reflects the unique dual policing mandates and plays the focus of our strategic plan. And we'll go to the next slide there. The strategic plan is actually a whole different presentation, but I wanted to touch on it because it's how we get to our vision, and that's through our strategic priorities. And our priorities are our people, our work, and our communities. So when we talk about our people, we talk about our officers and our other employees in the OPP that we are wanting to support, and that healthy workplace. Second, our work, which is enhancing our investigations through technology, giving our employees the best tools to do their jobs to deliver the best product to Ontario and policing. And then what we're here doing today, our communities, it's partnering with communities that have a shared vision of public safety. So happy to be here. Without the community partnerships, it'd be very difficult to achieve what we wanted to achieve. I'll just go to the next slide. I wanted to say too, in this slide, we're going to move through this a little quickly because I know we're limited for time, but you're going to see a lot of information within the slide deck. And we did that on purpose because we want to use this slide deck, so to say, as a resource for you. So even though there's a lot of information here, we're just going to skim over. We really encourage you to go back and use this as a resource later on for any other presentations or whatnot that you're doing. So there's some actually technical build stuff moving further into this that we're not going to go deep into, but it's there for you for further explanation. So OPP, integrated service delivery. So when we started, I talked about our dual mandate, municipal policing, provincial policing. So when we do that, obviously we're not recovering costs for provincial policing, we're recovering costs for municipal policing. So with integrated service delivery, when you see a police officer out in your community driving around, they could be doing one of two things. They could be doing a provincial responsibility, or they could be doing a municipal responsibility. The unique thing with this is that both provincial and municipal complement each other. So there's benefits for having that partnership of doing provincial and municipal. So how do we sort that out? So as far as it goes to building, what we have is a system called a daily activity reporting tool. So in a police officer's car, they all have computers now, lots of technology out there. If a police officer is on a provincial responsibility, when they get in their car in the morning, they'll log on and their time is tracked throughout the day. So if they're doing something provincial, that is tracked. That's tracked through themselves. That's tracked through our dispatch. It's also tracked through our quality assurance on the back end. So it's a very good, accurate tool. When a call for service occurs, that call for service would be dispatched to the officer. And now that call for service would be something that would be billed to the municipal. Lots of benefits for this, working together, doing the provincial and municipal as far as budgeting, because, it's the economies of scale. We don't have to now have provincial officers working in the same area as a municipal officer. They both complement each other. So it's just a better way to do business. Let's go to the next slide. With the change in the CSPA, as we all know, lots of changes there, lots of context within that new legislation. One of the big things is police services board versus detachment boards. We added this in because we're finding that as we go throughout the province, there's a bit of confusion between responsibilities of a police services board and a detachment board. I'm sure some people in this room possibly have sat on a police services board before and now on a detachment board, which you'll see the difference sitting on that board, but not sitting on the board. You may not realize that some of the responsibilities are quite different. With the detachment boards, what the bonus is there is we're trying to take a lot of the responsibility off of the board so they can focus more on their local area and the responsibilities there. So 4 big categories, if you just look up on the screen there, we have scope of oversight, policy development, report requirements, and community representation. So those are the big 4 categories. First, when we look at scope of oversight, an OPP detachment board serves multiple municipalities and First Nations, where a police services board focuses on an individual police service. So where a police services board might just be one municipality, we now have a bunch of municipalities that are all policed by the OPP in one room, being able to discuss issues across the board. But like, let's face it, crime doesn't have borders. So it's great to have those perspectives from neighboring communities that are policed by the same police service. Policy development, board, detachment board, what I'm talking about, they establish local policies with the detachment commander, where a police services board has to build policies for municipal police service. So when we came in, we talked about the strategic plan. We're doing that already for our detachment boards. We have a strategic plan where a police services board, they have to get right involved in all of that and work with the police service to develop those things. So again, freeing up time. Reporting requirements about providing annual reports to municipalities and band councils for detachment boards, and then police services boards preparing and publishing strategic plans and annual reports. And finally, the community representation, the big reason the CSPA was brought in place to have more of a voice from different communities, talking to the policing agency, basically, that's looking after that area. We'll keep moving. Next slide. I'm going to turn it back over to Lisa and let her get into the billing.
Yeah, it's exciting. So thanks for that, Rob. So basically, we're going to now look into the responsibilities and the recoveries. And I'm not sure if you knew this before, but you are only, again, billed for the municipal policing recoveries. And as you see, for 2025, the estimate is $4.97.4 million. So that amount is going to be recovered from the 330 municipalities that the OPP police in the province. For the responsibilities, we have 1.059, sorry, 1,560,000,000.9. You start this again. $1,056,000,000 is going to be recovered by the provincial government. So they pay for those, for that service. So you do not get recovered for those costs. And as you see, it's gone up substantially. But again, things are changing. Our world's changing, population's growing, technology's changing as well and evolving. We'll go to the next slide. We're going to do a little bit of a breakdown so you can see what that is. So under our municipal policing recoveries, from that, we're going to see that involves all your costs to actually run the police service. So we need detachment staff, our supervision, frontline constables, our administrative support to support the officers in our roles. And again, we've got communication operators, detachment guards, our academy and service training, vehicles, uniform equipment, radios, and our IT support. Everything that it takes to run a police service is involved in that cost. For our responsibilities, again, you see that amount at the top. We have everything that involves our specialized units. And this isn't the extensive list. This is only some of them. So again, it involves our traffic safety, our waterways, trails, air enforcement, investigative specialty units, intelligence, specialized response teams. And as you can see, we have a lot of them. And I guess you're in the privilege of being so close to Aurelia, where the whole province has access to these resources, but being in such close proximity, it's even an added bonus for your community because we're that much closer and based out of headquarters in Aurelia. Next slide. So we're going to take a more detailed look at the cost of the recoveries. So we've broken it down. We've done some color coding. You're going to see the theme throughout just to help us keep that in check. So we've broken it down, the 497 million. And you see at the top of the pyramid, it's 53 million. And that goes towards our other direct operating costs. So we have anything to do with our overtime, court security, accommodation, cleaning, and additional services that are agreed upon. And again, it's directly based on your contract and your usage. For calls for service, that again is also based on your usage. And that's any time that an officer is called to attend, an investigation is completed, service has been provided. That's a billable call for service. We're going to go into that into a lot more specific detail. And again, as we mentioned, the base service cost, that's what it costs to run policing operations, to be available, to be kitted up properly, to have the resources available to respond. And that also is allocated across all of the 330 municipalities on a shared cost. So we allocate that per property across the across the province. And again, in 2025, we had 330 municipalities that the OPP police, and that comes to 1,246,809 properties. And that number continues to grow. Slide. So I put this slide in because on your annual billing statement, I'm not sure if you have a copy or if you had the chance to preview it. Every year, this number, this page is updated. So you're going to get to see it's very transparent and clear. Again, those costs that we saw on the other page that had the other costs down at the bottom, the green, it shows how it's all calculated. So on the left, you could see the number of uniform officers. You could see the percentage of that fee that's charged in the orange, and it follows suit under the base services. I'm not going to go through each specific item on the bill, but it's just if you want to go and look detailed, that number is provided for you, and you can check that every year. And again, your calls for service as well. And at the bottom, we show the number of properties and how that number is calculated. So this year, the base services cost per property came to $189.44 per property across the province. And that's again on page 3. Okay, so the next slide. And now we're going to start looking at your bill, specifically for the Township of Severn. So again, in the orange box at the top, we look at our base service. As I mentioned before, the annual cost this year per property is $189.44. And in your municipality, you have 7,747 properties. And then the total cost comes to $1.467 million. That's how we get to that cost. And MPAC calculates the property counts. OPP does not do that. We get that provided to us annually. In the blue box, you're going to see all of the calls for service that were generated throughout the whole province. And again, your portion that the OPP responded to provide service was 0.4599%, which comes to $124.34 per property. And then that's where you come to the $963,540. And on the following slide, we're going to look at your calls for service again in more detail, but that's just the overview. And in the green box, again, you see the other other direct expenses where you had our overtime, prisoner transportation, and that's every property has to pay that fee of $1.67. Accommodation and cleaning services, because you do not have your own detachment, you use a detachment, it's incorporated there. You pay a $5.70 per property charge. And again, that comes to your total estimate cost of $331.95 per property. And then total cost again is calculated. And as you know, there was a bit of a, anomaly this year. In the past, when the billing was, your estimates were provided, we were regulated under Bill 124, where only a 1% increase could be accounted for police wages. And as you know, our wages were ratified and that increased to about 12%. And as a result of that, the government decided to allow for a 10%, one-time 10% discount. And again, that's been calculated on your bill, which came to $33.20 per property. And then after, again, your total estimated cost after the discounts was provided was $298.76 per property. So that's your total amount that was charged per property for everything, for your base services, calls for service, other operating expenses. And you also see the year-end adjustment. And again, that usually amounts to looking back, because we reconcile the bills. So back in 2023, this amount was generally it comes down to overtime because you don't have a court security house. So again, you had to pay an additional $14,000. And on the last page of your billing statement, again, if you want to go into the specific details, you can see what your estimate was in 2023, and it gives the exact calculation there to show what that adjustment was for the year end. So again, that's how we come to the total for your 2025 billing estimate to be $2,328,776. Are there any questions on this?
Thank you. Yes. Any questions? Yes. Member Minnings?
Hi, thank you through the chair. Thanks for your presentation. On slide 11, so it's the
sorry,
slide
please,
before
Sarah.
this one. My question is, you'd mentioned municipal contracts. So my question is, do we have them? Do individual municipalities have individual contracts with the OPP, or is it a one contract for the 333 municipalities?
That's a great question. So prior to the Police Services Act, you had the option to be either a Section 10 contract agreement with the police, with the OPP, or a 5-1 non-contract arrangement, which you were under. So you never had the opportunity for enhancement positions, that things that go above and beyond adequate and effective policing. But the good news is, under the CSPA, every municipality now has the opportunity for additional policing services under a Section 17 contract. You will only be billed if you have those additional policing services. So for example, some municipalities opted to have dedicated resources for traffic enforcement. So they pay completely for that position and the vehicle, everything associated to that position under a contract arrangement for that. So Severn Township does not have that.
Okay, thank you. So subsequent question on that slide, slide 11, costs under salaries and benefits. So you've listed a bunch of different positions. For example, let's just go to constable. And the salary per FTE full-time equivalent is 120,000. Is that the top end of the scale? Is that the average of what we're cost? Because we're charged based on salaries and wages, which is a big part of it.
Right.
So, but I know not, well, I'm going to assume not all constables are making the top end of the scale if that's what's shown. Can you just speak a little bit more about those numbers?
Sure. So that is a first class constable rate. And as you know, when we enter into policing, it takes 4 years to get to that level. So it's an overall average. And again, and it gets balanced out throughout because and as you become senior officers, like I'm 20-year officers on, we get premiums for that as well. So it balances out, but that's the wage that you see for a first class constable, as well as for a sergeant's level pay. And then again, the staff sergeant, anything to do with, and then up to inspector to do with the supervisory.
I have a question. You talked about the 1% and then the one-time exception at 10, but costs went up by 12. So will there be some sort of catch up next year then?
So what happened when the bills were reconciled this year, we applied our financial support unit applied the wage increases, and they had to reconcile 2023 and 2024 because we were without a contract. So those amounts were reconciled and applied. And that's why the amounts were higher than the estimate, because when the estimates were initially done, they could only account for a 1% wage increase based to regulation. But the bill 124 was turned. So then again, our contracts were ratified. And this 10% discount was a one-time discount applied. We don't know what the future holds. Again, it's within our government, so stay tuned.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So say if we get a request from a resident that they see some crazy stuff going on, so they either call you. So is that included in our package, or is that extra over and above? And or if we ask a request from township, whereas we have a black cat, we may have there and ask you to analyze that. What do we get within the package, and what's extra? When do we start paying extra?
That's a great question. Actually, you know what? I think, can I hold that question till I explain the actual billing portion of it? Sorry, the calls for service portion, because that'll make it very clear. Make best use of our time for that. Nope, that's wonderful.
All right.
Thank you for bringing that forward. So we're just going to continue on. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, you do that.
Thank you. And we'll just go back to the next slide. So again, this is just a snapshot, again, just to show over time, even though we have an increase, the red line, as you see on the chart, that's the increase in our properties that we patrol, that we police, and the OPP polices. And again, you see the blue is being our total cost recovery. So that's the municipal cost recoveries, which has increased over time. And the orange is the average cost per property. And again, Severn is below that. So the average cost per property this year was $399, and Severn is $298.76. So it is fair and equitable in that, again, you pay for your allocated usage of calls for services, and again, the shared costs of our base services as well, and then your ODEs. So that's just to give a historical for you. Go to the next slide. And again, we already talked on year-end adjustments, so that's for future reference as well. We'll go to the next slide. And we're going to get into the calls for service. This is a very exciting page, and I'm going to let Rob talk on it as well, but we're both fighting for it.
Thank you. This is actually my favorite slide. If you can have a favorite slide in the presentation. The reason I say that jokingly is we get so much information from this. This is actually page 5 of your billing statement. So on page 5, you will see this chart here, and right below it, you'll see a replica chart. The top chart is your municipality. The one below it is the total provincial numbers. So unique with this slide, it's a great tool for council. It's a great tool for the detachment commander, police services board, because this gives you a quick snapshot of what's happening in your community. So when you look, there's 9 categories here, And in the 9 categories, it starts with drug possession at the top and ends with violent criminal code on the bottom. In those 9 categories is every single call for service that the municipality is billed for. So after page 5 and the subsequent pages in the bill, you will see all of those calls itemized under these categories. So if you have a question in your head, hey, I wonder if we got charged for that call that happened last month, you can go back to your billing statement, look up, and if it's not on there, you didn't get charged for it. So all the calls are in there, everything's itemized, and it's unique because some calls, like I'll use operational, for example, you'll see your operational calls, I think it's the 3rd one down, they're quite high. Across the whole province, that is normal. That is our calls for service that are, I'd say, are non-criminal, things police officers do on a regular. And it's like a neighbor dispute where we go out, there's no criminality, we do a report, and we move on. So operational call, that would be an example of that. You'll see there's 4 years worth of data there. What that does is it averages out the calls. So we take the 4 years of data so that when we are budgeting, like as council's budgeting, we can get a number that's not going to have a huge spike or a low or a high because we're doing an average over 4 years. So for example, we look at operational, back in 2020, it was 917. And then for the 4-year average, 884. So it stays very consistent. So that way, next year, we don't have to worry if the calls for service went really high this year. We're still going to be based on an average. So it just keeps us at a level keel. You'll see average time standard in column B. So next to each category, there is a time standard. And what that time standard means is how long does it take for an officer to complete a call in that category. So any call in that category, this is done yearly, we take all of that data and we average it out for how long it takes a call. So sometimes a call, as a police officer, you can go to a call that could take you an hour, and then the next time you go to do it, because something happens in the call, it takes you 5 hours. So it's again to keep an average going. So average for you look at operational 3.9 hours. So to do a call like that, by the time you drive there, do the report, do whatever you have to do, 3.9 hours. This is what the calls for service bill is based on, is this average. I'm going to bring this up because it's always a question when I go out and do any of these presentations is, I was out, for example, I was out and I saw a vehicle stop in my community and I noticed there were 6 police officers there. Well, I feel that's a waste of resources. So how come we're paying for 6 police officers for that one call? Well, that's not how it works with OPP. With integrated service delivery, we don't pay per officer. We pay per call for service. So when you see 6 officers there, all you're getting charged for that call is that one time standard, the 3.9. So the unique thing with this model is that we can deploy officers wherever we need them for whatever the circumstance is. So if you have an incident that comes down like a missing person where you require 15, 20 people to go do a search, you're getting charged for the missing person call. You're not getting charged for every officer that's out on that call. You do get charged for the overtime per individual, but you do not get charged for for that call for service is just that call for service. So I hope that clarifies that if anyone's thinking that in the background about, how services are deployed. We do see fluctuations in these numbers, as I mentioned, with the average time standard. We look at something like drugs. This is another question I get a lot. You'll see right beside drugs, line 2, 88.1 hours. So it's a lot of time. A few years ago, that number was half that. And the reason for that, drug investigations have completely changed. I used to work in drugs, and we used to be able to do a drug call very quickly. Now with the fentanyl crisis and the things that are happening out there, we have frontline officers doing testing on drugs now. We have equipment that tests drugs for potencies, things like that. We have to do lots of different referrals. We have to do all this different work. And you'll see too, like you'll say, okay, Severn, we only had 3 drug calls, really? Well, that's not an accurate number of what OPP is investigating for drugs, because we have actually units in the background, our provincial units doing drug work as well. So this isn't the calls for service. You got to remember, this is the calls for service. So if there's a calls for service about drug trafficking, the frontline officer will do that report, do that investigation, and then get a provincial unit involved, which is where the cost savings is, because some of these drug investigations now can last months. I've even seen them go into over a year before we can have enough evidence and threshold to actually do our warrants and our arrests. So really a lot of detail on this slide. So I won't keep going on about this slide, but the reason I wanted to spend some time on it was because there's so much data here. And it's great because you can actually look at the provincial averages that are below, compare your municipality to those provincial averages, and get a lot of information. I won't steal the inspector's thunder either, because I know he'll probably be talking about calls for service and then a meeting coming up, and he'll get involved in what's going on in the community. So let's go to the next slide. That's pretty straightforward. I think okay. Now, when I talk about calls for service, I wanted to bring up frontline efficiencies next, because municipalities are charged for calls for service. The OPP knows the cost of policing is getting higher, and we know that officers' time is becoming very valuable, especially when we look at these time standards. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make policing more efficient. Like, the OPP is very pro technology. We're very pro new legislation to make things work smoother. So we actually have units working in the background that are trying to do things that, I guess you could say, make officers' time more efficient. So, for example, we have up here a project on the go, which has been going for the last few years, where we're diverting calls for service, calls that don't land on the billing statement. So, for example, 911 calls. I'll just look up there. You see 911 call diversions. So you can see this big pie chart there, and you can see how many hours that we've diverted from the front line. There's a big number there, 165,244 hours diverted. So back in the day when I was a young officer working front line, I'd go out, I'd get a 911 call, and they'd dispatch me. I'd drive out to an area, and I'd be sitting there for an hour, 2 hours, looking for this 911 call drop. And I'd have to stay there just in case there was an emergency. But now, with technology and our ability to be able to figure stuff out faster, we don't have to do that. So if a dispatcher or a call taker, somebody in the call center, can figure it out that they don't have to send an officer out there, we don't have to create a call for service. So in turn, diverting that time, diverting that call for service, freeing up officers' time, it's great. So that's one example. There's other things like online reporting. Online reporting is great. If we have a mischief call that had happened to a fence 4 months ago, people come back to their cottage and they're like, oh, the fence is damaged. There's no video. There's no evidence. Why would they have to send a police officer out to that cottage to take a report for something with no evidence that can be done online by that complainant? So we have an online reporting tool where they can go on, they can put up pictures, they can do whatever they need, and then it's followed up later. Again, no charge for calls for service. And there's a lot of these things on here. All of this stuff's available on our website, and I'll get into that in a minute, but lots of great projects on the go. Mental health is a big one. There's so many great partnerships that we're forging throughout the communities that we work across the province. We have our teams on the ground that are now working with nurses and professionals in those fields. We even have, which I thought was awesome, and I actually just found out about this, but we've been doing it for a long time, is we actually have mental health workers working up in the comm center that are able to take a call instead of sending it to police. So if a call taker takes the call and they figure, hey, this is suitable to go talk right to a worker instead of a police officer, they can change that call over. So again, diverting a call for service and getting somebody the help that they need immediately. So really, really neat things happening. Available on opp.ca, you can see a lot of these things. So I'll just move on from here. Resources. So again, that opp.ca, I just touched on it basically there a minute ago, but the neat thing with this presentation, everything that we've talked about here today is actually publicly available. We're completely transparent when it comes to information. When you go to opp.ca and you put in municipal policing, it'll take you to a page. We put a bunch of the links up here of things that are available. We have webinars up there. We have call for service calculators. So if you wanted to change your calls for service and figure out what would happen if we change the calls for service to this or that, you can see the pricing and cost differences. A big question we get, and it's an example I used up here, cost by municipality. A lot of times I'll go to municipality and people will be like, well, you know, there's a certain municipality the same size as us. They're the same kind of demographic as us. What is their cost? So this tool allows you to go on there, put in either the detachment, the municipality, and pull up all the information. It's all right there. So you've got cost per property, the property counts. I used Dufferin for an example here because much like Aurelia, there's a lot of municipalities within that detachment catchment. So this one has Dufferin. See, there's 6 municipalities in there. We do still have the section where it says section 10 or 5.1 agreement, which we're hoping to update that and get rid of that because it's relevant. But the property counts, the cost per property. So there's one tool where you can go if you're doing your budgeting and you're forecasting things and you want to see what's going on in Ontario. All this stuff's available for you, especially the clerk and whatnot over here who are doing reports. Great info there. We'll just keep going. And there we go. So that'll wrap things up. And sorry for the rush through, but we didn't want to keep you.
No, that's great. It's really interesting and good to know that information for sure. Just one last round of questions. Yes.
I thank you through the clerk, the chair. Yeah, that was very informative and it really does answer a lot of questions when we just see the budget amount at budget time, like for me. So thank you. On slide 15, you don't have to go back to it, but it was the 2025 calls for service by billing summary. Most of the numbers were in the operational line. So it's that slide. My question is, when I direct people to call the OPP non-emergency line, are we charged per call? And is that where it would end up in operation or the operational line?
It completely depends on what the call ends up being. And again, if it can be diverted, if there's no report or no investigation required, no. But if it has to be investigated, an officer will be dispatched and attend. And the tricky part is too, when we get a call for service, sometimes when the complainant is calling in, it gets reported as something, but until we actually show up and investigate, it could be something completely different. So that's why we also have the DAR that accurately tracks. We see what was dispatched. We see what the officer actually put in and the location where it was put in, because that happens too, where they say one spot and it's another. So it is accurate what's billed to your municipality.
Thank you. Member Burkett?
Thank you. And thank you to the presenters. You can tell the passion in your voices, how, what's the word? How, anyways, you can tell by the passion in your voices how much you enjoy your job. Like, amazing presentation. My 14 years here, this is the first time we've had anything with a breakdown of the costs. And of course, last year was a huge hit for this municipality, as it was for many. And thank goodness to the Premier for rebating some of that money. I want to congratulate Inspector Dixon on his new position. All the best to you, sir. And your first page, the diversity, that is an amazing photograph. It just shows where our policing has gone and where it is today. It shows how diverse Canada is. That's an amazing, and I love the fact that we have ladies, and I know we've had ladies forever, but they're there front line in that photo. Great photo. I just wanted to touch, I think, Rob, you mentioned mental health and you mentioned the investigations. And I don't think members of council realize, because I was the only one invited, there was an award ceremony that they used to do before COVID, and they actually showed some of the crimes and the years that it would take to bring some of these culprits to justice, to get them to where they needed to be. But the amount of people, the manpower that was involved to get these criminals where they needed to be. It was amazing to listen to what needed to be done. And I don't think we realize it is an expensive hit on every municipality, but it's what we need. And I commend the three of you for what you do. I know that you don't get thanked enough for what you do. It wouldn't be something that I'd want to do in today's world. The phone has created an environment where you're always under scrutiny for whatever you say or whatever you do, but you're just doing your job. So thank you very much for everything you do. And thank you for the presentation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does any member of staff have any questions this time? Well, thanks again. As you can tell, we're all pretty happy with the report, everything, the slides, the detail is fantastic. And it was great to see you all. And for those that are new, welcome to the area.
And thanks again. And like I said, my information is on that sheet on the last slide, and as well as all our resources. So if you do have other questions that come up or you want to further discuss, feel free to call and I'm happy to make the time or put the proper person or resource in contact with you to get you what you need.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank
That's great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emma.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a motion at this time. And then I just want to get us past the consent agenda and we'll take a bio break.
Okay, the motion reads that the delegation by the OPP Municipal Policing Bureau regarding OPP integrated service delivery and the billing model be received for information.
Mover. Member Taylor, second. Member Minnings, all in favor? Motion passed. All right, the consent agenda. Does any member of the committee wish to pull an item? I can tell you right off the bat, I would like to pull D2.3, the Simcoe Advisory Statutory Public Meeting notice that we received. Are there any more? Seeing none, we'll move that to new business. And we can adopt the regular agenda and then we will take a break before we do reports from officials.
Motion to adopt the agenda then is that the agenda be adopted, including consent items, with the exception of item D 2.3.
Mover. Moved by member Minnings. Seconded by Taylor. All in favor? Motion passed. All right. Yep. All right. We'll continue our meeting. Thank you all. We are at F.1 on the agenda, Fire and Emergency Services, and I understand our Director of Fire and Emergency Services will be reporting on all three reports.
Yes, so good morning, everyone. So the first report in front of you is something that was approved when we did budgets back in November. So this is related to some capital expenditures. So this first one is diesel exhaust extractors, adding them in at stations 1 and at stations 3. So basically what this report is about is going with the same manufacturer that installed the units at station 2 when it was built. So a company called Air Technology out of the Toronto area. But what these diesel exhaust extractors do is they remove the contaminants from the diesel when we start the trucks up in the apparatus bay. So we do practice that we move the trucks out of the bay if they're going to be running for a long time. But with our change recently to firefighters no longer responding in personal vehicles and keeping their gear in their vehicles, we're now putting the gear in the fire stations. So we've got different ways in racking that we're purchasing to do that, but we can't put nice, clean turnout gear in an area that's going to be contaminated by diesel fuel. So hence that's the ask for these extractors to go in at both stations 1 and 3. And they're both about the same price to put in. They're about $32,000 for each station to put in. So this report is dealing with using Air Technology solutions, like I said, out of the Toronto area. Because if it's the same manufacturer, then if we've got a problem with one station or the other, then it's much easier to get parts. The filters are the same for each unit. It's just, yeah, overall easier than dealing with multiple manufacturers. So.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, motion, please.
Thank you. Motion reads that the Fire Emergency Services Report F25006 dated February 26, 2025, with respect to single sourcing the installation of new diesel exhaust extractors at fire stations 1 and 3 be received, and further that single source procurement for the diesel exhaust extractors be accepted, and further that the single source is awarded to Air Technology Solutions in the amount of 64,000 plus HST.
Moved by Member McIntyre, seconded by Member Minnings. All in favor? The motion passes.
Okay, so next up is dealing with radio system upgrade or improvement. So again, part of the highlights in the background. So currently with the size of our municipality, we run off of 2 different radio towers. So one is in the Artria area, the other one is in the Anderson Line area of Coldwater. But our current setup doesn't allow for those 2 towers to be linked. So in the Coldwater area, so station 3 is running basically on 1 frequency or 1 repeater. And when we sort of get halfway between station 1 and 2, so we have a fire, tank 3 comes into station 1 and 2's area. While they're driving or any portable radios, we now have to switch them over onto the Artria tower repeater. And then vice versa for stations 1 and 2 going into Coldwater. What it also does is it just keeps us with 1 radio channel. So from a health and safety point of view, if we have what's called a Mayday situation, which is sort of an immediate threat to life or something dangerous, we're now competing with trying to run fireground operations and still put the fire out or mitigate a hazard while we're trying to deal with a team that needs potential rescue or some sort of intervention on their side. So by linking these 2 towers, it'll actually open up a second radio channel for us. So that'll improve communications immensely because we can, again, with our tankers, we can run fireground operations on one side and we can run our tankers on another, that we're not competing for airtime. The other thing it does as well is it makes the process a lot simpler for Aurelia. Because right now, Aurelia, if they're dispatching all 3 stations, have to dispatch on 1 radio repeater for stations 1 and 2, and then do a completely separate message for station 3. So with this Motorbro system that point-to-point communications would put in, it's utilizing existing equipment that we already have. And it doesn't require us to spend $15,000 just in investigation to add 5 to 10 pounds of equipment at the current Anderson Line tower. So this is sort of our best bang for our buck that gets us the best that we can have in our radio system.
Good. Committee questions? Seeing none, can we please have a motion?
Thank you. Motion reads that the Fire Emergency Services Report F25-005 dated February 26, 2025, with respect to single sourcing the required radio system upgrade be received. And further that single source procurement for the required equipment upgrade and subsequent radio reprogramming be accepted. And further that the single source is awarded to point communications in the amount of 40,000 plus HST.
Okay. So the next report is dealing with the fire software and incident management system. So the current system, we're basically using the dispatch CAD information that through Aurelia. So most of our records are still actually tracked on paper. So we're not as efficient as we could be. So this records management system and wanting to go with First Due allows us to do a lot more where we can utilize cell phones, we can utilize technology, tablets in the vehicles. Like right now, for if we've got a problem with a truck or a piece of equipment, the station captain has to email the district chief has to email the deputy chief. With this new system, the firefighter that notices a problem can basically create a work order from their phone or from a tablet that'll be located in the fire station. And then it automatically notifies the proper people. So it's a one step as opposed to a 3-step process. From a data point of view, it'll allow us to provide better data when it comes to things like budgets, call types, and things when we have to come forward to council for, again, additional equipment. And this First Due company, so they've got 3 other departments right now, plus one in the district of Muskoka that are using this software. They've got, I believe, 3 or 4 others besides us looking to use them as well. What that does for us as a bonus, so right now, Georgian Bay Township has it. So if we jump on, if we get called out for mutual aid into Georgian Bay, or if Georgian Bay comes into our area, on our tablets, we'll be able to see each other's information. So if they build, let's say, notes on a property that it's got some sort of a hazardous material, or it's got a pre-plan as to how to best attack the building, we'll be able to see each other's. So I know Tay Township is looking at it right now as well. So that's the bonus of going with this company called First Due. So they're, again, very popular in the United States for fire and EMS software solutions.
Yes. Member McIntyre.
Here, the chair to the chief, does this eliminate our any connection now with Aurelia if we bring this system in?
No, so this will work with the system that Aurelia has. So they've got other departments that their CAD will push data out to our system.
Okay.
So it doesn't eliminate or change any of that information, but we can make our system more robust than what it currently is now.
And it'll connect with the surrounding townships if need be, and you're all on one tablet?
Yeah, so anybody else that'll be using the First Due software from our tablets or somebody's cell phone, we'll be able to share that information with each other a lot easier.
Okay, thank you.
So,
We have a motion.
Thank you. The motion reads that Fire and Emergency Services Report F25-004 dated February 26, 2025, with respect to single sourcing of a fire services software and incident management system be received. And further that single source procurement for the new software and incident management system be accepted. And further that single source is awarded to First Due fire and EMS software in the amount of 25,000 plus HST.
Mover. Moved by Member McIntyre, seconded by Member Taylor. All in favor? So just a couple of things I'd like to say to you, sir. One, thank your crew for coming to our rescue and at the gas accident at Otis Park the other day.
okay, yes.
As always, it's great to see them, and I'm glad I didn't get blown up. So that was fantastic. It's amazing because they're so fast. It's really cool. And secondly, we just spent over $20,000 on fire. We're hoping not to see you again too soon.
Yes, yes.
All right. Administration report F2 5666. Township of Severn's film policy for municipal owned property.
I am, sir. Thank you. So through the chair, staff report 2025-006 provides the film policy for corporate services consideration. This policy relates only to municipal owned properties such as our community center, roadways, and road ends. Private property would not be affected by this policy currently. The film policy will allow the township to make sure that proper insurance, security deposits, license, permits, etc., are obtained by any film production companies looking to use the township's assets to make sure that our citizens and ourselves are safe and secure. Following the approval of the policy, township staff will be working to add township assets to the Ontario Creates Film location inventory. Economic development staff are working right now with the townships of Oromadonte and Rama, the city of Aurelia, and the Aurelia CDC to provide education to our local businesses and to our local property owners about the benefits of film and how film can be a new revenue generation. Through the summer, township staff will also be working with private property owners to add their properties onto the Ontario Creates website. And I'm happy to answer any questions that corporate services may have.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none, we'll take a motion.
Thank you. The motion reads that Administration Report 825-006 dated February 26, 2025 regarding Township of Severn's film policy for municipally owned property be received, and further that the municipal film policy Schedule 1 be approved and implemented immediately. And further that the user fees and service charges bylaw be updated to include Schedule 2 film location rental and film permit fees.
Yeah, moved by Member McIntyre, seconded by Member Minnings. All in favor? There you go. That passes. A star is born. Thank you. All right, where are we at here? New business. And we have a report from Member Minnings with regard to amendments to the noise bylaw. Proceed.
I thank you through the chair. So as you'll know, last month we started reviewing the Good Neighbor bylaws, which was awesome. And I asked that council approval of the noise bylaw be deferred so that I could bring it forward to propose some further amendments that I feel would strengthen the noise bylaw. So I'm not going to read each one of my lines there in the agenda. However, one of the main considerations that I'm asking for is that wherever we talk about Saturday and Sunday hours, for example, that we include statutory holidays together with that. Then the next one that I would like to do is under 7.1. It talks about noise infractions, and I'm asking that a word be removed from the amendment to strengthen the bylaw. And normally I would be adding words, but in this case, I'm asking to have one removed. And I'm asking for the word electronic to be removed. And it was specific to a comment in a scenario that Member McIntyre brought forward around noise infractions that could be caused by non-electronic devices. For example, in his example, it was around the car beeping devices that emit noise during restricted hours. So I think by removing the word electronic, it strengthens the bylaw. Then there was just a grammatical, there was a word missing under 13.1. And then for the clerk, I'm looking for under my very last point, which is under 18.2.c. Just, I need help understanding the last sentence, which reads, the total daily fines may exceed $100,000. I'm questioning the word daily because it's also states in that section that the daily maximum is $10,000. So I just need some help understanding whether we've got that correctly as stated. Thank you.
Yeah, before we go through those three major points, before we do that, would the clerk like to comment on any of those to help us with this dialogue?
Not in particular. The member reviewed them with me before the report came, and if council wants to proceed with them, we'll make the necessary amendments and move forward.
All right, then, a question from Member Taylor.
Yeah, just one that member Minnings went over 8.1. Lawn, you want to start at 9 in the morning versus 7 in the morning. And does anyone have I think that seems reasonable to me.
No person shall cause noise or use any lawn. Yeah, okay. Yes, Member Burkett.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm struggling with 8.1. I don't know how many complaints we received, but summer is a time that people begin work at 7 in the morning. And I haven't heard anyone complain. If it's just a one-off, we have to remember this is a huge township. And if we look back at that wood cutting bylaw, what happened after we passed it, or we didn't pass it. Opening this now is going to open a Pandora's box. I also struggle with 7.1, remove the word electronic. I'm not sure what we're looking for. If it's the gentleman that's been using his car door beeper to confront his neighbor, that's something we shouldn't be involved in. We're here to make bylaws, not to solve a domestic dispute. That I think if Member Minnings could just elaborate on the electronic part.
I thank you, through the chair. Yes, so agreed, we're not here to solve neighbor disputes. That's not the intent. By removing the word electronic, it actually broadens the scope of the bylaw. So, you know, regardless of the example that I brought forward, which I thought would help help everyone with understanding why I thought that word should be removed. So I still stand with removing the word electronic. Under 8.1, the other question around lawn maintenance equipment, power equipment, to restrict their operations beginning at 9 a.m. They do align with the permitted hours, Saturdays, Sundays, and I'm proposing include statutory holidays. I understand that the season is short, but I also would argue that I know in my ward, I've had lots of people work at Casino Rama, they work shift work, etc. And just having those power equipments that are associated. So I'm thinking of leaf blowers and whippersnippers and riding lawnmowers. We in my ward, we live very closely together in 50-foot lots or smaller. And I don't see that would disadvantage a company from operation. And I think it's an important, so I do stand behind consideration of council for those two.
Yes, Member Burkett. And
Thank you, through the chair. Again, I can't support 8.1. If I want to get up in the morning and start my lawnmower at 7 o'clock, just like I have been for the last 66 years, and I know our demographics is changing, but you have to remember, Member Minnings, that yes, you are the ward councillor for Ward 4, but there are 4 other wards, and we, as we make a decision sitting at this table, reflects the whole township, not your individual ward. So we have to be conscious of the fact that if this bylaw passes at 9, we have 2 bylaw enforcement officers that they don't start until 8:30. we're going to get inundated with calls. And I'm sure that's what will happen as soon as our residents understand that now there is a bylaw and some teeth to enforce it. And I still struggle with the electronic part. I'm not sure. You didn't explain clearly what that meant. If the electronic part refers to a car door and someone clicking it on and off, I can't support that one as well.
Let me just get my 2 cents in. Oh, did you? Yes, go ahead, Member McNair.
Thank you through the chair. Particularly 7.1. I have neighbors on two sides of one fellow being tortured by this guy at 4 o'clock in the morning, beep, beep, beeping his horn when he goes out, comes back at 2 hours later after the dog park, beep, beep, beep. 4 o'clock's ridiculous to be honking your horn. I agree with Member Minnings on the proposal to have the unnecessary noise at ungodly hours. So the word electron doesn't mean a lot to me, whether it's electronic or how they make the noise at ungodly hours is what matters to me. And in this case, I would be in support of the amendment at 7.1, 100%.
Member Burkett.
Not to continue, but Madam Clerk, what does this electronic, by removing it, what does it mean for our bylaw enforcement officers should a call come in? I'm not understanding removing the word electronic.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Bear in mind, this is purely within the section dealing with operation of a motor vehicle. From staff's perspective, it doesn't make that much difference through to the member. Most vehicles are electronic in general these days, so everything related to them runs through a computer or some battery operated device. So they're electronic. It's
Supplementary, if I may. So let me clarify the question. So this gentleman that's been dinging his thing at 4 o'clock in the morning, and if the neighbors on either side phone to the office and want something done about it, are we in a position to do anything about it?
through you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if there's value in talking about specific one-off neighborhood issues. In general, we have a couple areas that staff are dealing with that are regular frequent flyers. Staff generally caution about amending bylaws and changing regulations just to reflect one complaint or one issue. Again, completely within council's prerogative and responsibilities to do so if they seem that that's where they need to be. But we look to try and approach it where these rules are going to apply to the township as a whole. Staff do work 7 days a week now, so they're out at different shifts all the time. We respond when we receive a complaint. That said, with the exception in this one instance, I don't know if in the 5 years I've been here in supervising bylaw, if we've received complaints with respect to a lot of car noise issues. Normally it's more related to folks working on their cars in their garages than car horns or beeps or things like that. The other thing I do want to just mention in passing is with respect to the car beeper sounds, every car manufacturer is different. So I know my last car beeped 3 times when I locked it. This one, I knew one beeps once. There's a Audi around the corner from my house that beeps 6 times every time they go to lock it automatically, and that's the default beep. So just things to bear in mind that if staff go out and received a complaint and found that that is what the natural reaction is when it's just press the button once, then we're going to be limited in what our response can be because we can't tell people not to lock their cars.
Thank you. Thank you. And then just subsequent to that explanation. So to help member Burkett I hope understand my intention by removing the word electronic, we still have a bylaw that prevents people from having noise infractions regardless of the during restricted hours, regardless of how that noise was caused. So I am taking out the word electronic. So it does not take away the fact that there could be a bylaw complaint during restricted hours. This is just to broaden the definition so that a bylaw officer responding to a complaint does not have to get fixated on whether it was an electronic sound or a non-electronic sound. We already have bylaws that prevent noise during restricted hours. So it's not about the restricted hours or the ability for bylaw to respond. It's all right. We already have the clause. I'm saying that by putting in a specific word like electronic, it broadens it so that it doesn't matter whether the noise was caused electronically or not. It's not about the time of day the noise was caused. It's already in the bylaw.
All right, just my main concern is with regard to 8.1 as well. Just based on my experience, we have a lot of small operators that cut lawns, certainly in my neighborhood. I experience this on a regular basis. And yeah, it can be annoying sometimes, but these are small operators trying to squeeze in a day. They'll come on weekends and they'll start. I've seen them start as early as 6 o'clock next door to me. That's annoying for sure. But 9 o'clock, I don't know, that's, it's a couple of hours out of their day. I'm not convinced that's a good idea. I put up with it in the wintertime with snow equipment. Holy geez, I have these huge tractors blasting light through my windows as my neighbors clear their properties. And it makes, and one other guy, he plows, he uses a snow blower at 6 a.m. to get to work. So, I adjust to these things because that's life. And hey, I'm not going to bitch about that. I got other important things to worry about. But I'm concerned with the 7 o'clock because of the impact it might have on business. So I won't go for that change to 9. We do still have one matter outstanding on this though, and that is your explanation of the 100,000 or the 100,000. And if we could get that. Yes, Member Burkett.
Sorry, thank you through the chair. So 8.1 and 9.1, I can't support either one of those and happy to support the other ones. If we get an explanation for 18.2, as you stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe I can speak to 18.2. So 18.2 in general is the progressive fines piece that council wanted to see. So the total daily fines. So say when it gets to 100,000, so we're talking if we can sometimes lay multiple noise charges on a certain property. And if we ended up going to part 3 them, so to take them to court and it's severe enough where we have a fine of $10,000 for charge A and 15 for charge B and 15 for charge 3. And it keeps continuing, then the justice would be limited to what the final total cap would be. That's how that works on a daily. So if we had all these things and all these fines were limited, say happened on July 1st and we issue 6 fines and they all go to court because this is a reoccurring thing and it's beyond just the basic set fine. We're asking the justice to go above and beyond. So they issue, I don't know, 20,000 for all 5 fines. It means that they couldn't go 25. So and that means then that there still could be on July 2nd, a whole nother 5 charges that still get laid and they couldn't go above 100,000 if those got appealed to court for those. So it puts like a bit of a cap as to what the cumulative total could be if a part 3 goes to court.
Okay, thank you so much for that explanation through the chair. Can you add some of that verbiage? So maybe cumulative total based on, the categories, something that you described, because when I read that clause, it's not crystal clear to me. And this is our opportunity to make sure that the bylaw and all the sections are strengthened. So is that an opportunity?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can certainly try. This particular section under section 18 is more written for the courts than it is for council. So I will work with the Attorney General's office to see what language they are willing to approve and entertain, because this has already been vetted through their office once. So if they're open to some smithing, then that's fine. It will delay the implementation of the bylaw probably by a couple of weeks for another round of review. If they're willing to do so, even because of the provincial election. So I can take that back and talk to them about it. But if there are no changes that they're willing to accept, then the existing language will need to stand if that's just for council's information, because sometimes the court language is a bit of a funny thing.
So if there are no I think we're going to need 3 different resolutions here, one for each of those sections.
So perhaps,
Well, I think
Well, I
I
think-
see differences of opinions on each of 3 points.
if I could perhaps, we could do a general motion with respect to the long weekends, the statutory holidays, and I'm gonna say housekeeping pieces, and then have a different motion with respect to the amendments to, I think it's section 8.1, and I think it was 9.1 that were requested. But I believe member Burkett wanted to speak.
Yes, Member Burkett.
Thank you, through the chair. The clerk has said that she's going to bring this back, and we have 2 members of council that are not present today. This is very important. It's a noise bylaw. It's no different than the other bylaws that well, they're all important, but no different than that tree cutting bylaw that stung us. I don't think we should be voting on this today until we get the input of the other 2 members of council that are absent today, unless we pull it at council next week and we have a discussion then. And I look to the clerk for some clarity, please.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Staff had no intention of bringing another report forward, so depending on how council went on these items today, we would amend the bylaw accordingly and put the bylaw on the next agenda. Council can always pull any bylaw from the list of bylaws for adoption, if there's a discussion that they want to have on that, but this is a council member's report, so unless the motion reads is that staff report back, then staff, we're just going to make the amendments depending on the motions and put the bylaw on the next council agenda for adoption.
Member Mannings.
Thank you. And just for my own clarification, then we do have quorum here today at the meeting, and the fact that 2 members of council are present aren't present hasn't been a factor in any other vote that we've had. So I don't know why this has special precedent, Member Burkett, especially since one of the members absent hasn't been at this meeting since October, I believe. So I would go with the clerk right now, but it's not enough to delay a vote because we don't have everyone here when that hasn't been the standard.
Yes, Member Burkett.
Thank you, and thank you, through you, Chair. This is important. This is a noise bylaw. Anyways, we can take a vote on it today. We'll just pull it when council convenes next week, and hopefully the other 2 members will be present at the time. It is an important document.
Thank you.
So this is the members' report. So the member, do you want your original motion to go forward, or do you want to proceed with it in pieces?
I'm comfortable having it proceed in pieces so that we can continue to streamline it.
Okay, so then the first
Before you
motion,
proceed, Member Burkett.
I'd like a recorded vote, please, through the chair.
member Burkett, do you want it on all 3 motions or just the 2 that talk to 8.1 and 9.1? Because we're going to do the amendments with respect to statutory holidays and just going to say the clerical amendments first.
So just so through the chair, just so I understand, we're going to vote the way it's in our agenda right now. Is that the vote we're going to do today, right now?
I'll read the motion out. So the first motion will be that the report from member Mannings regarding amendments to the noise bylaw be received. and that the amendments to section 2.15 and 4.1 regarding statutory holidays and clerical and housekeeping changes be approved. So this does not include the changes to section 8.1 or 9.1. It would include the changes to 13.1 and 18.2C.
Okay, so we're not voting on.
Point
we're
one,
not-
well, 7.1, 8.1, and 9.1 separately.
Okay, thank you. No, we don't need a recorded
This is
vote
the
for
rest
that.
of it. So it's the statutory holiday piece in particular,
Okay,
part of this first motion. Do you
Okay.
require a recorded vote on the first motion then?
no, I do not. No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. So first motion then to reread it says that the report from member meetings regarding amendments to the noise bylaw be received and that the amendments to section 2.15 and 4.1 regarding statutory holidays and other housekeeping changes be approved.
Mover, member McIntyre, seconder, member Mennings, all in favor? Motion passes.
Okay, so next motion, and member Burkett, please tell me if this is one you run a recorded vote on. So this would be that the amendment to section 7.1 be approved to the draft. That the amendment to section 7.1 be approved to the draft noise bylaw. So 7.1 for clarification is the removal of the word electronic.
Sorry, through the chair. So 8.1 and 9.1 aren't part of this motion, correct?
They're going to deal with each 7.1, 8.1, and 9.1 separately.
All right, thank you. I don't need a recorded vote for that.
For this one, okay.
No record.
No recorded for 7.1. This is the electronic. So just for clarification, so the request is to remove the word electronic under section 7.1. 7.1 is the operation of motor vehicle section. So the motion reads that the amendment to section 7.1 be approved to the draft noise bylaw.
Mover, member McIntyre, seconder, member Taylor, all in favor? The motion passes. Okay, next motion is that the amendment to section 8.1 be approved to the draft noise bylaw. And 8.1 is the lawn maintenance equipment restriction to operations beginning at 9 AM. Mover?
Oh, through the chair, I need a recorded vote for this, please.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so still need a mover and a seconder.
Moved by member Mennings, seconded by anyone can second it. Seconded by Taylor. All right. And
Okay, recorded vote requested by member Burkett. So member Burkett for or against.
Against?
Okay. Member McIntyre for or against. I need you to turn your microphone on, please.
Against?
Thank you. Member Taylor for or against.
for.
Okay, member Mennings for or against. For. Member Brennan for or against. Microphone.
Against.
Thank you. Motion fails.
Where are we?
9.1 is next.
Through the chair, Madam Clerk, I would like this recorded as well.
Okay. I believe I need a mover and a seconder. So just for clarification, 9.1 is the restriction to power equipment starting at 9 AM. Rather than I think it's 7 AM, right?
Mover. Member Mennings, seconder, member McIntyre.
Okay.
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote requested by Member Burkett for or against.
Against?
Okay. Member McIntyre for or against.
Against.
Member Taylor for or against.
No.
Member Minnings for or against.
For.
Okay, Member Brennan for or against.
Against.
Okay, motion has failed. Okay, so just in summary, we do have the amendments proceeding for the statutory holidays inclusion and the various other housekeeping changes and the section change to 7.1 to remove the word electronic. So that amended bylaw will then be put on the March 5th council agenda.
Good. No, good discussion. Thank you all. All right, moving on to new business from the consent agenda. This is my item. This is with regard. Pardon me? Yes, I'll pass the chair to Member Minnings, if you will. Yeah, so the county, we were given notice of this county Simcoe to post a public meeting about council composition ahead of council for Tuesday, March 11th. And it tells you in the notice that the bylaw proposes to establish a head of council that serves exclusively on the council for a 4-year term. The position of warden will be appointed by a council among eligible electors. The bylaw includes revised updates to an existing weighted vote system. Like, that's all great, except it's not great. Like, I don't know, like they talk down further about a triple majority. I don't know what planet that kind of talk comes from. I don't know how anybody, a resident, could ever understand this notice and what it means. Is there an analysis? Is there some sort of explanation? What are we talking about? What's the significance of these changes? The idea of elected versus an appointed warden. There's nothing here for our citizens to work on. It's like somebody said, I think it's going to change things, and God knows why. So we, in my opinion, first of all, this is awful. I was hoping there would be an extensive study or something that would explain the rationale. And here we are proposing a major change in governance for our area on a piece of paper like this. To me, it's a disgrace. And it does not serve our democratic approach, the lack of any kind of detailed analysis. And I have no idea how work is going to be done. Neither do the residents. Who is going to do the work that the other 16 people did in the past? Nothing is explained. And if that's planning by Simcoe County, we're in serious trouble because it's just not fair. So we're expected to go to this. We're expected to encourage residents to go to this and say yay or nay. To me, it's absurd that we're approaching it this way. So I think as a minimum, because God knows we only can do so much, but we need to get, is there some place we can direct or give notice at least to our residents in Severn that there is some logic to this, that there's some thinking gone into this, that this actually is good for us? Like, what are we going to do? Like, this is not going to cut it. And I fear big changes that are for the worse. So that's my point.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So just by way of background, if you were to click the link that's in the notice, it does take you to the webpage on the County Simcoe's website with the notice. There are 5 background reports that are posted there providing historical information and background information on this. This is a statutory standard notice, to be fair to the county clerk, that is put out in accordance with the act. Having attended a county clerk's meeting on Friday with respect to next steps and process. So the public meeting will be held on the 11th, I think the date is. Following that, the bylaw, which is actually quite a simple bylaw, would come forward to the next county council meeting. If that bylaw passes through county council, then there will be correspondence, information and such sent to the lower tier municipalities for them to then weigh in on whether or not they vote in favor of the change or not. So this is sort of a step 1 of a multi-step process, to be fair to the county. This item, I'm sure Member Burkett can speak to this. The composition of county council has come up almost every term of county council for a very, very, very long time. So it's not a new process. This has come up for review, irregardless of where this one has sat today. A general review of county council is not a new item. It's been on almost every county council agenda for quite a long time, for many terms. But there is additional background reports. I do want to be fair to that, up on the county website. So if any member of the public were to just click the link on the PDF notice, then they would be sent immediately to the page that has 5 subsequent reports and presentations that are online for access. So, there will be presentation and such at the public meeting, as like any public meeting.
Cool.
And we just encourage you, if anyone's interested, to register to attend.
Yeah, the problem is people don't know this, right? There's no way, like, for those of us that track stuff like this down, it's okay, but it's really not very enlightening to residents, or I don't see anything that's going to encourage them to participate in the discussion on the 11th or a Q&A. Like, it's just so bare bones, and it's just so without any kind of rationale up front. Like, again, like things like you use terms like triple majority. That doesn't mean anything to people. And what I really was hoping to get for here is that if we can put out some sort of notice in Severn to say, look, here's some background information. Here's, like, just highlight it so people can actually understand where it is and get some of the background and hopefully participate. Just something like that. I know there was one notice already out, but I just think we need to answer some questions like, what does this mean? Or what is the significance of this? There's just nothing here.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to the CEO to weigh in, and then to Member Burkett.
Thank you, through the chair. So I think we are boosting the county post for information. I think we can tag our own post to say this is an important governance matter you should pay attention to, but I don't think we can get into details because it's not our circus, for lack of better words. But what I wouldn't want to do is interject any thoughts and opinions into what people are thinking. I know our mayor and deputy mayor voted a certain way, and if it gets before this council, they will tell you what their thoughts are. But I think we have to be really careful. It's a county process, and we can't go too much above and beyond, other than to just say, hey, our peoples, here's the notice, this will shape your county government for years to come. So pay attention. I think that's sort of the limit of what I'd be comfortable for a message.
Okay, and I'll just go to Member Brennan to respond to that.
Yeah, that would be good. I hope we can be explicit. I would like to see us direct them to the information, like make sure they know it's there and what that is. And to be explicit about it. It's a critically important governance issue. And I don't see that in the notice. I think most people would wake up and go, what? We did what? This is what concerns me. If we do, as you say, boost this notice, that would be great. And I fully appreciate that we're not there to express opinions, but we can ask questions. What does this mean? Like, how is work going to get done? And people need to ask that question. How are we going to get this work done? Because I don't see that people are going to have any clue. And I don't see anything good in any of this, frankly, but that's different.
Thank you. Member Burkett, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. You're absolutely right, Member Brennan. What a confusing document. And to add insult to injury, it was asked to be a recorded vote, which most of us that I struggled with as well when I first got on, but a recorded vote gives more clout to the larger municipalities. So Bradford, West Gwillimbury, Innisfil, New Tech, and of course the vote came in tied, but because it's a weighted vote, the members of council, and I have to respect the other members of council, they are my colleagues, saw merit in going through this exercise. Where it'll end up, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see, but a very confusing document as to how we move forward with it. But again, to Madam CAO's comment, she's bang on. She is right. We'll have to see how this unfolds. But if anyone is showing interest, yeah, there's a huge workload down at the county, and I'm sure Member Taylor can attest to that after yesterday's meeting, the amount of material that he had to read for one meeting, not to mention all the committees that we sit on as well. And I'm not sure if it goes to a 16-member county council, it's going to increase the workload for the mayors immensely. And it's just,
I'm sorry. Over to our CEO for response.
Thank you. Member Burkett says I'm right with such surprise. So, you know, so that's a little hurtful. But all of the questions that Councillor Brennan have been asking were asked at the county meeting, and those that voted against the new plan had those same reservations. So they weren't answered there either for the county to make those decisions. And I think because it's bounced back and forth what county council had decided. So staff at the time when they went to this new model, I don't think we're prepared to answer any of those questions. And I don't think they're planning to answer those questions because it's a governance, wholly political decision. So it's a rough one on the staff side at the county for sure.
Thank you. So I have one question. In light of the discussion today, and understanding that there's still an open meeting coming up March 11th, and then the issue is we're anticipating it comes back to this council for a vote. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for council to ask staff to prepare a letter to the Simcoe County to ask those questions so that at least we have a paper trail that we've asked the questions, and then a paper trail if there are responses that we haven't figured out the governance piece, then at least we have that. But I would like us to formally put our question forward for as what was discussed, and we'll need that information when it does come back to us for a vote as to how this municipality goes forward. Member Burkett.
thank you. You, Madam Chair, fair comments, but I think the decision, it can't come from staff at our level. That'll be a discussion that we'll have if it moves forward on March the 11th, that'll be a discussion we'll have at our table with those questions and answers that hopefully both the deputy mayor and myself will have for you. But those are questions that I will ask, and I'm sure the deputy mayor will ask as well. We have a whole realm of questions that we need answered as we move forward as to how this unfolds, because it is something new for me in my whole 15 years there. It's been brought up each term. It's been defeated for whatever reason. This term of council, it was a decision of county council. That's why staff are uncomfortable answering any of those questions. And I'm sure our staff would be uncomfortable giving me any questions when in my mind, I know what I need to ask sitting at that county council table. And I hope that that's okay of an answer for you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that clarification on process. So we'll go to Member Taylor and then Member Brennan.
Yeah, through the chair and just my comments, Member Brennan had a lot of good questions there. Like the other one is the new proposed warden is a selected warden, unelected. Does he or she have a vote to break a vote? Is there a deputy warden? So there's all kinds of questions that remain unknown, and hopefully we can get our thoughts together to support our mayor and deputy mayor when they speak at county council. So, but I'll let the mayor's got his sign up there and I'll let him speak.
Thank you, Member Burkett.
Through you, Madam Chair. Great question, Member Taylor. And those are questions that they didn't want to provide, and staff can't provide that. But trying to convince the other members of council to those asking those questions that I asked, that the deputy mayor asked, as well as other members of the floor, there was no answer because there was no, and I don't think they could provide it. Staff couldn't provide those answers at the time until something passed, until we actually had a decision made where we're going to move to a 16-member council plus one member elected at large, no different than the District of Muskoka. And then when it was approved, then those questions would be answered. And that seems kind of backwards to me. We should have those answers answered first so that we can make a constructive decision as to whether or not to move forward with 16 members and one elected at large.
Thank you. Member Brennan.
Yeah, my intention here was to try to get us to boost the notice. That's why I brought this up. And by boosting the notice, what I really want to do is point out to people a few things that this does not tell you. Number one, this is a hugely important governance issue, right? I mean, this to me is as important as voting tomorrow. This is a governance issue. We need to. Two, there are lots of outstanding questions that haven't been addressed. There's no reason why we can't say what the questions are. These are the kinds of questions that people should want. You should attend this meeting. And I know it's hard. It's, it's on a Tuesday, all that stuff. But I'd like us to at least be able to say, we tried to make the citizens of Severn Township aware of a very significant meeting that's coming up that can have huge long-term implications. I'd like to know, for instance, why we're going elected at all on the warden. We've got other, appointed wardens, and is there something wrong with what's going on in Peel? I don't know. I just don't know anything about this stuff yet. But anyone who's making a proposal like this should have these answers. And the fact that staff, wow, if they don't even have the answers, it shocks me beyond belief. This is just wrong. So if I was to make a motion, it's just to boost this thing, to bring it, not politicize it, but to say, here are important issues for you to know about. We're going to be there. Certainly most of us, I think, will be there, but you'll want to be there too.
Thank you. Member Burkett.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Great questions, Member Brennan. And I think rather than sit here and talk for hours about this, to your motion, happy to support it, and hopefully our residents engage.
Thank you. Over to our clerk.
Thank you. The one thing I might add is, so we'll have that the notice be received and that staff provide additional communications on the matter. But I would like to perhaps add that should a line to the motion says, should the bylaw pass through county council, that a delegation be requested to our council from the county clerk so they can come speak to the matter. Because to be honest, this is not our level of government, and this is very much the responsibility of the county clerk to respond to. So
thank you. Can we have the motion read then? We'll give you a few minutes to actually write what you said.
Okay, so the motion reads that the notice from the county of Simcoe regarding a statutory public meeting be received for information, that staff provide additional communications on the matter. And for that, should the county bylaw be passed, that the county clerk be requested to attend Severn Council as a delegation on the matter.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Member Brennan, seconded by Member Taylor. All in favor and carried. Thank you. I'll pass the chair back to Member Brennan.
Thank you, Member Minnings. That's great. Thank you. Well, we're getting near the end here. Committee member updates. And why don't I start with Member Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start with Severn Sound, SSCA. We now have a memorandum of understanding with the Township of Day for continued treasurer and payroll HR services, and it's a 5-year term, so a little more stability there. Our Coldwater Mill, still meeting monthly, working on events for this year, and the live music and the musical barn will continue again this summer. Matchdash Community Heritage Center, we're all dug out there. The hall's been used all winter, and the election polling station tomorrow is we're hosting that from 9 to 9, and hopefully those that get your document, get out and vote. And it does say vote at the Matchdash Hall. As Member Burkett said, I was the alternate county council yesterday, quite a long meeting. I was filling in for the deputy mayor. And one of the hot topic there was garbage. And they've done an audit, a snapshot analysis of garbage inspected, sorted by category. Kind of a shocking number that out of the garbage, 24% was deemed garbage, 46% was deemed organic. So they're going to come back with a report with different options, how to get the public to increase the organic pickup delivery. And I didn't realize this, but the mayor was part of the sorting group that went through that, and he said it was something enlightening there. And I'll let him speak to that. And also last night I attended the Live open house at Hawk Ridge. A good presentation by Live and their consultants, and very formal, professional, well done presentation. Our planning staff were there along with Councillor Brennan. That's all I've got for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Member Minnings.
Thank you. For updates, a few. I've spoken before about a member in Ward 4 who participated in the Invictus Games recently and just did an awesome job in 3 events. And there's going to be a media release on this individual, and they're going to be coming to council most likely in the spring when the weather's better, so that we can formally recognize them. So that's just such a good news story. My other update is around the Aurelia Library Board. They hosted the physician recruitment gala on Friday evening that was again very well attended and a wonderful success. They have a full menu of March break activities for any families who are looking for something to do with their kids during March break. So Severn Township residents are welcome to go and participate in all of those. And I had been approached by a member, resident, back in the fall who had written a book about local stories. And just fantastic news at the Aurelia Library Board meeting last week that they've accepted that book for the shelf. So I will work with the clerk as far as how we can profile that good news story on our township website, etc., and invite mayor and council to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Member McIntyre.
Thank you, Chair. On Saturday evening, I attended at Baby Wildwood, the Ontario Medical Students Association meeting with there were 108 people in prospective physicians in attendance. Very well attended, very well organized. I spoke to them briefly about the opportunities of being here in Severn Township as family physicians, and about I neglected, and I thought at the end I should have possibly mentioned the likelihood of a new hospital by the time they're out of their studies. But I mentioned it to Natasha and Rebecca, the two co-chairs, and they brought it up the minute I told them. So very well attended. Information provided by Tracy Roxborough about our township maps, pins, activities, winter and summer. So like I said, it's very well attended. I was pleased to be there. I'm going to go back there today or tomorrow to pick up what they did not take as giveaways. I've got it sitting at the front desk at maybe, but I was pleased to be there, and I mentioned I was there on behalf of the mayor, the deputy, members of council, and Member Brennan, because he sits on that committee. So I went there last year. I'd like to go next year. Very well attended and very well run. That's all I have.
Thank you. And thank you so much for covering for me on that one there. I really appreciated it. That 108 number is significant. Last year, there were 44, right? So this is fantastic. All right. Report from the mayor.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you, Member McIntyre, for doing that. That's great. Just to add to what Member Taylor discussed at the county, this came to county council last year And what staff were looking for is if you didn't have your green bin out, they wouldn't pick up your garbage. So of course, we did not vote in favor of it. We asked that they do a campaign through education, through media to explain what was going on, because our landfills, I think 2027, Collingwood closed last year. Nottawasaga, which is in Stayner, will close this year. And the one in Oro will close in 2027. And we now are shipping all our garbage to Brampton to be incinerated. We've signed a 20-year contract to incinerate the garbage, but that doesn't solve our problem. So 20 years will come and go very quickly. And at the end of the 20 years, we still face the same problems. County Council was invited to actually show up at the Nottawasaga landfill, and what they did is staff there randomly grabbed garbage bags, I'm not sure from where, and we would open them. So they gave us an apron, gloves, a mask, and honest to God, I got to commend the staff that were there opening these bags, because after the second bag, I was ready to contribute to that green bin. I couldn't take the smell. I don't know how they do it, but it's amazing what our residents are throwing out in the garbage bag. There were whole chickens, like just not even eaten. And in today's world, when there's so many people going hungry, to see the food that was thrown out, and it could have just went in the green bin. It didn't have to go into the garbage. And myself trying to sort it, it was very difficult for me. And as they say, there's an app now on your phone. If you're not sure where something goes, you just open the app. And I get the app for garbage days as well as the Waste Wizard, it's called. So I can just look very quickly to see where something is displaced. But what they were looking for yesterday, staff was looking for, was a permission to buy a tool, and I forget what it was called. Maybe Member Taylor knows. To track garbage so that they can actually physically come to one's residence to ask, because we realize we live in rural Ontario. A lot of people are composting, but to see why they're throwing out green bin stuff in the garbage when it really needs to go in the green bin. And at that Nottawasaga facility, it was amazing to see what our county staff are doing to recycle what they have. They had machines there that recycled shingles. The compost, you could literally, after 10 days, take the compost material, and they had a special machine that kept going down to turn the composting rolls over. They came up with this on their own. Pretty amazing. And the stuff that you grabbed, it was beautiful, like just nice topsoil. And I think maybe an angle like that to show our residents what composting does. And it's not just food scraps that go into it, as we all know. Tim Horton paper cups go into it. Paper goes into it. There's so many things that go into the green bin that will be compostable. And we all need to do our part to save the environment. And I think that's what, because you'll never be able to open a landfill. I don't think, and Toronto's facing the same problem. I know they're hauling their garbage down to St. Thomas, past St. Thomas somewhere. And I think those landfills are going to be full 2031, which is not very far away. And those are my comments, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, it's certainly an important issue out there. Scary. All right, my report. The Aurelian Lake Country Physician Recruitment, member McIntyre spoke to that. They did have their event. Also, member Minning spoke to that. I've been derelict to duty, I think, this month. I was planning on going to that. They charge, I think it was $125, and it's all to raise money for the recruitment cause. And it's an amazing event. Like, it really is an amazing event. You walk in the door and they hand you a glass of champagne, and you get to taste the best foods by some of the local restaurants. And the company is pretty good too. There's a lot of interesting people. Anyway, I ended up going to another function, missed that. So I gave my ticket to my wife, who tells me she loved it. The people and the food were amazing, and highly recommends the new Indian food restaurant on Mississauga Street. So there you go. She was our ambassador for that event. I was away last weekend at the OASS, the Ontario Association of Agricultural Societies Conference. There were 1,200 people there at in Markham. Huge emphasis on marketing and tourism there. I went to a number of sessions. I hope to share the information with people. For instance, there was a really good marketing farm sessions that I'll talk to Becky about. Maybe we can get that on board for one of her courses. I'll speak to that a little bit later. Anyway, great conference. I learned a lot. I didn't take the line dancing. They had a line dancing course, and I should have gone. I know I should have, but I missed out on that. But it was a great session, and also the Otis Park had their AGM on Monday night. They appointed 22 directors, a number of new directors, lots with some savvy business background, and hopefully that'll help us move forward in the future. The chamber, chamber had intended to have not so much a debate amongst the candidates, but because they didn't think that at least one of the candidates would show up because of that. So they were hoping to have like sort of a friendly, more relationship oriented thing. That never worked out. I think a bit of a disappointment that we can't get our candidates to come and talk to us as part of the democratic process. But anyway, you can find their things online, I guess. It's I don't know. I find it disappointing. I really think that our democracy's just hit left, right, and center these days. But having said that, the chamber has their business awards meeting tonight. Black tie optional. So if you got a suit for me, I'll be there, and I know our CAO will be there. So that should be an interest, and that's at the Opera Center. I know it's not a committee, but I want to talk about the training yesterday. So I attended the training session that our wonderful staff put on agritourism diversification. What a fabulous session it was. It was so well done. They had great speakers, lots of knowledge. The second floor in Coldwater was packed with farmers, and they really, really did appreciate it. I was so really impressed. And the number of our people that contributed to that, I got to name them because they were great. Of course, Becky was there, and Tracy was there, and they made it all work for sure. Katie Mandel gave a great presentation. Jeff Andros, Jack Hawkins on the fire end of things. I don't want to miss anybody here, but I was so proud of our staff, and I know Lori was there, just cheering them all on. But it was so well received, and it gave us an opportunity to sell our economic strategy and to sell the fact that we have a new committee. And anyway, I tip my hat to the staff. Really, really excellent program. And that is my report. Yes. Member Burkett.
Thank you, through the chair. Were there questions, many questions asked from the residents that were there? Member Brennan?
Sure. I mean, you're here.
Through the chair, there were a number of questions related, mostly focusing on individual properties. So a lot of the conversations happened after or during the breaks with staff about interest in their one-off properties, how they can work with township staff to make their goals achievable. And we are going to follow up with each attendee individually, like through an email survey, to find out what they are planning on doing and how we can help work with them.
Supplementary, if I may, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much to everyone that was there. I'm sorry I missed it. I did see a picture of the room being full. I think just the fact that moving forward, just to have that interaction between our residents and our staff, to let them know that we're here to help them. We're not their enemies. We're here to guide them through difficult times, right? Like, it's difficult to understand the process, and there's lots of rules and regulations, and I think they needed to understand, and I wasn't there, but hopefully that we want to keep them safe and want to keep any business where we have the public in safe. Anyways, thank you to each and every one of you that were there. And thank you, Member Brennan, for bringing that up.
No problem. I had to do that. All right. Well, I am sure the grand finale of the day here, the Chief Administrative Officer's report.
Thank you. Member Brennan actually stole my thunder because I was going to talk about yesterday too, but just for council's information, I think when Becky started planning it, we thought 20 people would be a success, and I think we had about 60. So I think that was really great, and it was a bit of a mix of people. Some businesses that we have put through all of the processes, and I think they were there to make sure that we were being consistent with our message with all our businesses. But it really was about we welcome your business ideas, but we just want you to operate safely. And we had things like insurance agents there talking about how if you're not operating within the township zoning, you may find yourself uninsured, which we've been trying to promote that message because it's hard for businesses to say, you know, I run a farm, I'm already a business. Why can't I have people to come on my property? So lots of conversation about fire safety and accessibility and things that people really needed to understand. So I thought it was really well done. Kudos to Becky. And I understand some of our neighbors are copying our event and going to have them in their own municipality. So that's pretty cool. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. So we've started a trend, and that's great. So good job. That's all I have today.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
Closed session. So just a motion to adjourn at 11:30.
Mover. Member McIntyre. Seconder. Member Taylor. All in favor? We are adjourned. Take care.